Alright, welcome back to Crime in the Coconut. This will be the 5th episode, I think.
Yes, sometime in March, because the first 4 episodes are already out.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. How are you?
Good. I'm Amanda.
I'm Ashley.
And we have our coconut cups.
We'll clink them just for effect.
Alright, that was the sound of plastic clinking. What are you going to talk about today?
Today, so I originally was going to do the second part of the Innocent Man murders, but that is very in-depth, and I already have 10 pages of notes on it.
Ooh.
So I want to try to refine that a little bit more, so I'll do that at a later date once it's more cohesive. So I am doing Diane Downs today. I watched this 2020 coverage of her. It's on Hulu, and it was the best episode of 2020 I think I've ever watched. And I couldn't believe that I had never heard of her before I watched this episode, because it's kind of a very famous case from the 80s. So here we go. Let's get it poppin'. Elizabeth Diane Downs was a 27-year-old mother who moved from Arizona to Oregon with her 3 children in the year of 83. Her marriage to her children's father, Steve Downs, who was her high school sweetheart, had just gone really awry right before she left Arizona, and they believe that was due to her infidelity. Her children's names were Christy, Cheryl, and Danny. Anne Rule, who is one of the... Do you know who Anne Rule is? She's one of the most famous true crime writers of all time. She knew Ted Bundy.
Oh, really?
She writes... Yeah, she's amazing. She died in 2015, so she was amazing. She covers this case, and her book on this is called Small Sacrifices. And in that book, I read the beginning of it, she discusses the town in Oregon that Diane and her 3 children moved to, called Springfield. She says it was small, simple, and safe. And they actually interviewed her for the 2020 episode in 2010. She makes a comment that people always say in a town like Springfield, something like this case, it just never happens until it does.
So it's a pretty quiet town.
Yeah, it's everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody was afraid of anything. But of course, it was also the 80s. I feel like people were still a little bit lax.
Yeah, I can see that.
It all comes crashing down May 19th, 1983.
That's my birthday.
Really?
Well, not 83, but...
Not 83.
May 19th is my birthday.
Very nice. So you're a
Yes.
Taurus?
Yeah.
Hey, I know my astrology.
I don't know any of it.
I don't know the dates. I can probably name them all, but I don't know when they start and stop. I'm a Gemini.
Okay. Is that March? June.
June.
Really?
There you go. Yeah.
I just guessed.
June. 6/6/96. The easiest birthday ever.
Nice.
Yes. So May 19th, Amanda's birthday, Diane takes her 3 children to visit one of her friends. And then on the way back, they leave at 9:30 p.m. in the evening. That's what p.m. means, in case you're wondering. To go sightseeing. They go down back roads a lot. That she said it was just something that they did. And Christy, who was the 9-year-old at the time, when she was later asked about this evening, she said she recalled that "Hungry Like the Wolf" by Duran Duran was playing.
Rock band.
I know. And in the episode of 2020, they had to have bought the rights to that song, because they played it
a million times.
Yeah. They're we're going to get our money's worth out of this.
Definitely.
So then what happens next, according to Diane? So I'm going to say allegedly. All of this is alleged for now. A guy flags her down on the side of the road.
Okay.
And despite having 3 sleeping children in the backseat of her car, she pulls over, gets out of her car, and asks him what's the matter. He then proceeds to demand her car, and, quote, her response was, "You've got to be kidding me."
Well, yeah. She probably thought about it too. She's like, no, it's probably just a nice guy. And then he's like, give me your card. She's like, God damn it.
So, according to her, it was a bushy, scraggly-haired man. He shoves her aside and proceeds to shoot her 3 children in the backseat of the car.
Oh.
She said he shot one more shot, and it hit her in the left arm. She said at this point, she pretends to throw her keys in the bushes so he can grab them. And then she still has them in her hand, obviously, because she faked him out. Kind of like when you throw something for your dog.
Yeah.
I'm going to go get it. You're like, it's stupid.
Yeah.
And she gets in the car and she drives away. She claims that she drove like a madman to the hospital, firing firing on all cylinders to get to the hospital. When she arrives, she walks in with 3 bloody children, and her arm is bleeding. All of them are bleeding. Cheryl was dead upon arrival at the hospital. Danny ended up paralyzed, and Christy suffered a stroke. Meanwhile, Diane was only shot in the arm. With the children being treated, an officer obviously comes in right away to interview Diane about the situation. He gets the story about the bushy-haired man, but he says that her demeanor is very flat, which I thought that was kind of a funny way to describe somebody's reaction. Obviously, we can't necessarily judge people's reaction to a certain situation.
You go into shock and
right,
things like that.
But I think his use of the word flat is very indicative that her behavior was not even normal at all for a mom in any situation, really. Right. And the doctors and the nurses all actually said the same thing. They said her expression was stoic. It was almost like she was reciting a script. She didn't cry once. Not from pain, not from worry about her kids. She didn't ask about her children as they were being treated. The doctor that was like the main one that was treating all 4 of them, came in to see her, to update her on her children. She made a comment that he just never forgot. She said, "That really ruined my new car. I got blood all over the back seat of it." Why is that something you're thinking about in that moment? Again, I can't judge.
Yeah, I don't, because when I was in a really bad car accident last year, and my car got totaled, and...
Was that in that whiteout? That's that big
no,
whiteout storm? Oh,
it was actually right before that. I was going like almost 60 miles an hour on the highway, and there was a guy stopped, and I hit him, and then I spun out, and someone else hit me going...
Oh my God.
It was crazy, but I was the only one that left in an ambulance, and the whole time, they put me down as concussed, because the whole time I was worried about missing clinicals. That's the only thing I was worried about. So... Yeah. And I didn't cry either. I didn't cry once. And so, I'm not saying that's equivalent to her...
Right. But no, you're right. Like, people react in different situations, like...
But it's definitely weird.
It is, because she had kids involved. You did, like, the most important thing in your life at that point was your clinicals. That's what you were worried about.
I passed out once at Target, and I had my 9-year-old cousin with me, and when I woke up, I hit my head really hard, and they were trying to hold my head still, and I was trying to get up and look for my cousin because I wanted to know where she was.
Right, see, that's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal. Obviously, an investigation begins. There's an APB put out for this bushy-haired man. They kind of were able to come up with the sketch, and the sketch that they showed in the 2020, the eyes, like, almost looked exactly like Diane's, which I thought was kind of funny. So initially when it began, there was obviously panic all throughout Oregon in this area. The fact that there was apparently this crazy man that was willing to shoot 3 children, 3 sleeping children, and they had no idea where he was really freaking people out, especially in that small town. Yeah. And they really they had no sightings. They had really no evidence, save for a couple of shell casings from the scene. At this point, because there's really no evidence and the story doesn't make a ton of sense, they started to question some of the points in Diane's story. For example, some of the questions that were coming about in the media and from the police were, what kind of mother takes their children out late at night? And I thought, okay, well, she may have needed to. You know what I mean? Like, she's a single mom. That's not that weird. But what is weird is, what single mother stops her vehicle and gets out for a strange man that she does not know on the side of the road? Yeah. You don't do that. Yeah. They noted that Diane had also taken the time to carefully wrap her arm that had been shot by this stranger before she drove to the hospital, but there were no handmade tourniquets on the children. There was no evidence that she had tried to help them at all before she was driving to the hospital.
And it's really easy to shoot yourself in the arm.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll get to that.
I know that's a theory. I know it's coming.
It is. I don't know. I don't have children of my own, but I am a caregiver for my niece, and anytime she runs into anything, or my first thought is, how can I make her pain go away? How can I make this better for her immediately? And then I take care of myself. Yeah. So, and she's not even she didn't come from me. I just care for her. So I don't know. Can't speak to it, but it's just weird. It's not very maternal instinct of her. Not at all. That's for sure. And it did not suit well for her situation that this was the case. Right. At this point, because the story didn't make sense, it wasn't consistent, the police decided to ask her to perform a reenactment, which was really popular back then. Forensic files, all that good stuff. They wanted to understand the situation of the night a little bit better, that maybe would indicate why she had acted so strange, or perhaps catch her in a lie. As they show part of the reenactment in this 2020 episode, and as the reenactment starts, you can see her in the car mirror, fixing and primping her hair. And that That's a very female thing to do, but it's weird.
But getting ready for a reenactment of the death of one of your children.
And the critically injuring shot of 2 of your other children.
Yeah.
And the shooting of yourself, which in and of itself is traumatic.
Yeah.
On her way into so she's reenacting, and as she's getting into the car from showing when she kind of shoved that guy away and pretended to throw her keys, she bumps her arm, which is in a cast at this point. And she goes, "Oh, I just hit my cast. This is almost worse than..." And then she stops her sentence. "Oh, this is almost worse than..."
When she shot herself.
When I shot myself.
Ooh.
And that's exactly what police immediately
You
thought.
dumb bitch.
Yep. She was giddy throughout the entire reenactment. She's giggling, like she
like
had
it's
almost,
a show, like it's an episode or something.
Like she had almost this flirtatious personality, which is not a crime.
But it's definitely a little sociopathic.
It is.
Yeah.
At this point, police are 100% looking at her differently, and they go and search her apartment. They were able to get a warrant. It's there that they find diaries about how she had obsessively written almost daily about how she had fallen in love with a coworker. His name was Robert Knickerbocker. Robert was married. I know, Knickerbocker. They called him Nick, actually. They didn't call him Robert. He was married, but at the time that he met Diane and they kind of started something, not really, he was separated from his wife. Robert called things off when Diane headed to a different county within Oregon, and he did not follow her when she left. And Robert actually was later interviewed by Anne Rule when she was writing this book. And he said, "I'm very, very happy that I didn't follow her over the county line. She was desperate." And so at this point, Diane is heartbroken as she writes in her diary. She doesn't know how to get to the man that she loves. And so this kind of led police to believe that maybe this pushed her.
It was like a breaking point.
Yes. Very early on in this case, Diane and her family agreed to have a press hearing. And in part of it, you can see Diane, she's sitting on her living room couch, and she's begging for information about this person, if anybody has any. And in the same breath, she starts to call out some of the non-believers, because obviously at this point the media is saying, could she have done it? And people are talking about how she might be a suspect. And she says, "If I wanted to kill my own kids, if I had shot my own children, don't you think I would have done a good job? Don't you think I would have made sure they were dead and then just cried crocodile tears?" And I can see that being like a mother fed up with hearing that she shot her own children. Mm-hmm. But it's also a little sociopathic too, like trying to like gaslight and play both sides. Mm-hmm. And so when she's having these interviews and saying all these things, her own father started to turn against her. And in an interview that he did, he says, "It's starting to look to me like Diane did it, with all the children shot in the chest and Diane only shot in the arm." The police are now trying to form that reason why she would shoot her own 3 children. And so they go back to the journals about how she was in love with Robert, and they find out that he didn't want to be a dad. He didn't have any children of his own, and he told Diane, "You know what, I love kids, but I don't want to be a father to any children. Not my own,
not hers,
not somebody else's." And that was why he called it off.
Yeah.
So they're so the kids are the problem. Got it.
Yeah.
And I think there was a psychologist on there at some point that when mothers view their children as a problem to the life that they want to live, it can oftentimes, in the presence of other mental health conditions, negate any form of caring that they may have for those children. Mm-hmm. Which is fucking scary.
There's birds that do that. Birds,
mm-hmm.
if they think that like one of their babies isn't gonna make it,
mm-hmm.
they push them out the nest because they're like, "You're gonna eat all the food, and I don't want you to live because you're not gonna do it anyways." And they just like, kick them right out.
So she keeps doing her interviews. She's on TV show after TV show, and police are quietly just gathering more evidence against her. They haven't at this point said anything to her. They haven't interviewed her again.
That's smart.
Yep. And her interviews just keep putting her closer and closer to the prime suspect's chair.
It's almost like she just keeps thinking, oh, if I keep doing these interviews saying I didn't do it, then it's doing the opposite.
The more you talk, usually, the more detail you put into something, the guiltier you look most of the time. She just is lavishly embellishing the story every single time she tells it, mm-hmm. and making it more and more about herself. So while they're gathering all this evidence against her, they reevaluate the car from the shooting. They send it into a forensics guy. It was really cool. He had like string taped to spots on the car to show like where the bullets would have passed. It was very cool. They find blood splatter on the outside of the car. And this does not match up with the story because Diane claimed that the shooter had just leaned in and shot the kids, so there shouldn't have been blood splatter on the outside of the car. Maybe a blood drip, but again, that doesn't even make sense.
Not splatter, especially if she's only shot in the arm.
Right, and the blood splatter was not on her side. It was on the back passenger side.
Oh.
Yeah. So their theory at this point, they believed that Cheryl, because it was the side Cheryl was on, after being shot once by her mother, was able to push the door open and fall out of the car, and then she was shot in the back again because Cheryl was shot in the back. She was shot twice. So the shots themselves, remember they found the casings, the shots were made with a .22 caliber gun. She claimed she didn't have one. They found one. That was hers, so she just dug herself a hole there. In searching her belongings further after they found the gun, they found a different gun that had cartridges in it, and they took those out, and they found extraction marks. And what extraction marks are, they're specific to a single weapon. So one weapon is going to make a very specific and precise extraction mark, and they're all going to be different. And these extraction marks, when compared to the casings they found at the scene, matched.
Oh.
So even though it wasn't in the gun that would have shot them, they were the exact same extraction marks.
Yeah.
So it was clever of her to try to put them in a different gun.
Yeah.
But she obviously didn't know about. She was not in a true crime, clearly.
Yes. But I have a question, though. So I know Cheryl died, but what about the other two kids? Don't they have, like, their side of the story?
Just
okay.
Wait. Oh, it's
it gets so juicy.
I was watching this 2020 episode, and you're just not ready, because every time it came back from the little Hulu ad, there was some new. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, there's no way. So we'll get there. There's like at least 3 more twists in this.
Okay. Perfect.
So hole after hole in her story, police begin dissecting everything so they can make a stronger case so that they can finally arrest her, because they still haven't done it. One piece of Diane's story that they were able to debunk was when she stated that she raced like a madman to the hospital after she was able to get away from the bushy-haired man, which obviously would make sense. Mom in frantic state trying to get to the hospital. So most people speed to the hospital when it's not life or death.
Yeah.
But someone came forward and said that they were driving behind Diane that night
And
after this would have happened.
She
was going so slow his speedometer didn't register. He had to go out around her. So it was almost as if she was waiting for the children to die.
Yeah, like letting them bleed out so she can go in and be like, oh, I got here as fast as I could, but they're dead.
Yeah, or at least like almost dead, so they would just die when they were there. With all this evidence the police have, they now call her back in for another interview. They're preparing to arrest her. So she gets there, and her story changes completely. She states that there were actually 2 men there that night. And she states that when they flagged her down, they called her out by name. She gets frustrated in the interview. It was so funny. They played the recording of it. You can tell. Like, she's just got that guilty.
She's trying to twist it in a way that's going to save her.
Like, you know when you know someone is lying and they know they're getting caught and it just is, like, really desperate. They get really angry and aggressive. And, yeah, that's what it was like. They're putting more pressure on her. They're trying to build the tension. And the one guy said, when you're interrogating them, you obviously don't want to coerce them, but you want to keep the tension, like, even. You don't want it to change, like, go up or down too much, because if you keep it steady and constant, they get nervous, yes. So she just keeps saying, I know I didn't do it. And the next time, she said, the next time I remember something, fuck you guys, because I'm not going to tell you. You can keep searching for the next 20,000 years if that's what it takes. That doesn't sound like a mom who wants to find out who shot her kids.
Yeah, that sounds like, I know you guys think you caught me, but I'm not going to tell you shit anymore.
Right. And so they just keep saying very calmly, we're just trying to find out who shot your kids. And she said, well, you know what? Since you guys seem to think I should have brought the guy in here with me today, I'll go get him myself, because I know who did it. And then she walks out of the interview. She never says a name. She never gives anybody anything. She just claimed that in the interview and stormed out. Because you don't have to stay if you're not being detained. They still, at this point, continue to wait to arrest her, despite all this evidence, despite this new interview, because Christy was going to recover from her stroke. They were waiting for her to be able to talk. Yep. Because Danny, I forget how old he is, but Danny was way too young. Like, he wouldn't have, you know what I mean? But she was 9, and that's old enough for them. So when she was finally able to start talking again, she was obviously very afraid to talk. They had put her in therapy, and this therapist, genius by the way, when I heard what this therapist did, had her write down the name of the person who shot her. And he said, I'm not going to read it. He said, we'll throw it in my fireplace. We'll burn it. But I want you to write it down. When you're ready, you can have me read it before we put it in the fireplace. Mm-hmm. So every session, she's writing it down. She's tossing it in the fireplace. And finally, she becomes ready to let the therapist read it. She says, okay, you can read it this time before we throw it in the fireplace. And when the therapist opened it up, it said, my mom. And Diane Downs was then arrested February 28th of 1984.
Oh my gosh. That's very smart, though.
I know. It was genius.
It's really good for her future mental health, too. Because, like, it's... Mm-hmm. Speaking from experience, it's really hard to say this person's name that you're afraid of.
Yeah.
And I went to a counselor, and she did the same thing. She was like... That was the one thing we worked on for a long time. She was like, you are going to say that name and not stutter before you say it, not pause before you say it. You're just gonna say it.
Yep.
And I got to that point, and it's very
freeing. It's freeing, and it's good that therapy is so important, and good therapists are very underrated. Mm-hmm. It's good that they did that with her young.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, what kind of a life is she gonna, how, is there a therapy that can fix that? Right. Like, what's happened to her?
Especially, like, your mom, I don't know how her mom was to her before all this happened, but
I couldn't find anything, but I don't think she was abusive.
Yeah, but like this person that you trust, and all of a sudden they just turn and try to kill you. Like, how are you going to trust somebody ever again? And
then as you get older, and I don't know if I necessarily would be able to read about a case that I was so personally involved with, but if they do, and they watch something like the 2020 interview, or they listen to podcasts where people are discussing this case, hopefully in a respectful manner. How does it make you feel to hear that your mother was able to discard you for a life that she thought she preferred?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, very hard, but it was almost groundbreaking in a way, I think, for them to be able to get her to do that. And so the next step then was, can we get her to testify? They obviously didn't want to force her, but they were hoping that they could get her to take the stand. So Diane shows up to her trial, finally.
And you're screwed. If a kid goes up and testifies against you, you're screwed.
The jury's heartstrings are going to tug. So Diane shows up to her trial. She's still flirtatious, bodacious, all that stuff. She was, like, touching the hands of the people, like the officers that were escorting her, like, trying to be real friendly. She walks in confident. She's going to prove that she's innocent. But she also walks in 9 months pregnant.
What?
Yep. So, like, huge. Like, she looked like, and I think in the episode they called her, she looked like the Lady Madonna. Like, she came in these maternity dresses. She has blonde hair. She's all smile. She's pretty. And now there's this pregnant woman that they're trying to convict for shooting her other 3 children.
Do it!
Yeah.
Do it!
Yeah.
Shit!
Yeah. So people are like, how in the world did this woman get pregnant?
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Diane was a mail carrier for the post office, and she found this man on her route that had really wonderful bone structure. He was intelligent, physically pleasing to look at, and she came up to him one night, because she obviously knew where he lived. She brought a bottle of whiskey and some marijuana, and she did the damn thing. She told an interviewer that she knew her cycle so well that she knew the exact time she would be able to instantly get pregnant. She knew she would only have, like, one chance to do this.
So, what, she was trying to get a guilt brownie point for being pregnant?
I think...
Isn't the point of all this is that she doesn't want kids?
Well, listen. She tells that same interviewer, you can't replace children, but you can replace the effect they give you. For me, they give me love, stability, and a reason to live. She also very ignorantly stated that it's just so easy to conceive. It's not. There's some people that will literally never have children.
Yeah, but for some people it is really easy. Yeah. So she's probably just talking about herself.
For herself. But so basically, she never really says why she got pregnant. I mean, I guess she kind of tries to here. But it was to try to replace the children that she's lost, because the children never went back into her custody after the shooting. Right. They went to the state to like figure out what to do. Anne Rule, literally, she put it best. in her interview section about this. She said Diane did not have children so she could love them. She had children so they could love her. So she didn't get the man she wanted. Her kids are gone now. She's got nobody but herself, and she was feeling alone.
Yeah, I know somebody like that.
Yeah. So, it's not good. Just not good all around.
Oof.
Yeah. And so, like I said, at this point, I'm watching the 2020 episode, and I'm like, what the fuck do you mean she's pregnant? So at this point, the prosecution has to convince the jury, beyond a reasonable doubt, that this woman needs to go away for murder of one of her children and the attempted murder of 2 of her children while she is heavily pregnant with another child. Their golden goose at this point is Christy's testifying against her mother, but every single day was touch and go as to whether or not she would be able to do it. I mean, she's 9 years old.
Yeah.
Suffered from a stroke at the hands of her mother, who shot her.
And now she's got to confront her in front of people.
Yeah. There was actually, they talked about there was a made-for-TV movie about this where Farrah Fawcett actually plays Diane Downs, like, in her heyday. And they showed clips of the actress that played Christy, and she did a really good job. There's no photographs, obviously, of this case, but there were sketches, like the old-fashioned sketches, and it shows just this little girl, like, crying she's got, like, she's holding tissues up to her face the whole time, stuttering. I can't imagine. The prosecution, while they're waiting for Christy, they're trying to paint this picture to the jury of a mother completely obsessed with a man who doesn't want to be a father, so she wonders how she can get rid of her children to live this life that she actually wants to live. But admittedly, Diane helped them in her own way. At one point during the trial, they play the song Hungry Like the Wolf that was playing while the children were shot. And while it's playing, she proceeds to bob her head and tap her foot and dance to the song in the courtroom. So the jury just turns and looks at her, like, cockeyed. Like, you would think, you don't necessarily have to cry. You know what I mean? You don't have to go into this, like, sobbing, breaking down mess of a woman when something like that happens. But to dance to the song you know was playing when your children were attacked, or you were attacked.
Or even dance to a song that you know is trying to go against you. Like, just don't do anything. Why are you acting happy? Like, why like, what?
I think she thought that if she played this upbeat, innocent...
Like, if she acted like she didn't know what it was or something.
That it would paint a better picture of her just being this loving mother who wants to get her kids back. But it did the exact opposite. In the end, Chrissy decided to testify in what was probably the bravest thing she had done in her 9 years of life, maybe the bravest thing she's ever done in her whole life. She got up on the witness stand for the prosecution. She, terrified, the prosecutor asked, "Do you know who shot Cheryl?" which was the one that died. She responded real quiet, "Yes." And the prosecution asked her, "How do you know?" And she said, "I watched." And I can only, like, imagine being in this courtroom and trying not to cry. The prosecutor was trying not to cry as he's interviewing her on the stand. Diane never cried. Never once. While her daughter is retelling the death of her sibling. She said, "Mom stopped, got out of the car, got something out of the trunk, came back and knelt on the driver's seat looking back at us. She shot Cheryl, she shot Danny, and she shot me." The jury found Diane Downs guilty of 1 charge of murder, 2 charges of attempted murder, and 2 charges of assault. She was sentenced to life in prison plus 50 years. 10 days after her conviction, Diane immediately went into labor and gave birth to a baby girl. She was taken right away. Yeah. Obviously, a caseworker came and took her, and she was taken. It was like straight to adoption. There was already a family chosen for her. She was taken to the hotel, and she met her new family. They were the Babcocks, and they named her Rebecca. Diane never saw her again. And the prosecutor, Hughie, and his wife, Joanne, adopted the surviving kids, Danny and Christy. Everything seemed fine, but then when Rebecca reached preschool age, something unbelievable happened.
Oh my gosh.
Diane Downs escaped from prison.
What?
Yeah. She tossed her jacket over... This is how they figured she did it. I don't know if she ever actually confirmed that this is what she did. She tossed her jacket over the barbed wire fence of the prison, climbed over it, dropped the 16 feet, and while police were searching for her, she hid under a car. They found like a legal pad in her cell, and on the impressions of it was a map. And the map led to a house that was really close to the prison. They found her there. It was the husband of a fellow inmate whose house she was at. And she like retold how she got there. She had made this plan to run away to that house. She said when she got there, she took all her clothes off and he let her in. So basically, she just seduced him to stay in the house. And when the police found her and she came out, she was in his boxers.
Did she get pregnant again?
No.
Okay.
But I have a feeling that that's what she was trying to do.
God, all the wrong people breed. Jesus Christ.
Listen, I was like, why can't you just take one of her kids and give that to somebody else? The ability, just one time, give somebody else the ability to have that child. So in this process, obviously, they were terrified because they were like, well, what if she's just trying to get back to her kids, finish the job, or worse, just try to take them back? Because at this point, they're not her kids anymore. They have families. So prosecutor Hughie said he sat by his door in a rocking chair with a shotgun every single night, just waiting for her to walk through the door in case she was trying to come take the kids. And the Babcocks, they had initially wanted to keep the baby's mother's identity a secret, not necessarily from her, but just from the general public. But they had to then at that point tell people, yeah, she's Diane Downs' daughter. You can't give her don't release her to anybody but us. So then obviously she got caught. She went back. She's in prison still. Higher security now, but in prison still. So as Rebecca got older, she eventually learned who her mom was. I think she was about 11, and she tricked a babysitter into telling her who her mom was. And so she went to a bookstore and actually read a book about the case. And so she's in this bookstore reading about her mom, and she said it changed, because they interview her in the 2020 episode too. She said it changed everything. She started wondering about that nature versus nurture thing. She wondered if she would be like her mom.
Yeah, that's a sad thing too. You always wonder about that mental state passing down and things like that.
Because mental health is hereditary. So it just changed everything. She struggled. She ended up moving out really young from her adoptive parents' place. She got pregnant young. I think she was 17. She had her son, Chris. She ended up pregnant again with a second child from a different man, but she was living in a woman's shelter at this point. And so she gave the second baby up for adoption. And that was the moment she said, I felt exactly like my mother. And I think that's because she was a mother without her child. Like she had been given up for adoption by her mom, and now she had to give one of her children up for adoption. And that was just the comparison she was making. So she thought, I have no one to talk to about this that's going to understand except my mom. So she writes to Diane in prison. And at first, the letters were very cordial. It was, how are you? Getting to know you, whatever. And Rebecca said as time went on, they got threatening, like crazy. She said it was all a conspiracy, that there were people watching her and watching Chris, her son, and that there were people coming for her, threatening to have them hurt or killed. And so Rebecca was like, it all makes sense. She's like, I understand now. And she cut all communication.
I mean, at least she had that closure of like, okay, I'm not like my mom.
Yeah, she understood that it was a completely different situation. She's like she has like cool short purple pixie hair. She's like she looks like she's happy and healthy now, which is good. Yeah. She reached out to Danny and Christy, her other surviving siblings. I don't know anything about their relationship today, but
it's always awkward though, because like she wasn't even born yet when all that happened. So there's really no like emotional connection.
Right. So I don't think that they necessarily had that full sibling bond, but I think she just wanted to reach out to them trauma-wise to kind of connect with someone, because again, she felt like she had no one to talk to, and those are two people that she could talk to that somewhat know what's going on. She said that it said that Christy and Danny are both parents. I don't know anything about if Danny ever learned to walk again. I couldn't find that because they obviously said he would never walk again, but that changes sometimes. But I couldn't find if he was walking. But they're both parents. They're both great. There's no story of like drug abuse or any. That's good. Yeah, so they're both really wonderful people. And so is Rebecca. She still has her son Chris, and she's a wonderful mother. Diane Downs was officially diagnosed with 3 personality disorders: histrionic, narcissistic, and sociopathy. So like you called it earlier when she said she's a sociopath. And she's still serving her life sentence today.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm happy it had somewhat of a happy ending.
It did.
Except for Cheryl.
This one, like, scares me because women don't, like... Obviously, women are just as capable as men of committing heinous crime. But when women commit crimes, I feel like, at least in what I know of female crimes, they are much more intimate and passionate and twisted.
I think they're a lot more manipulative too.
They are.
Because I don't think they're almost like not. I mean, I'm not trying to peg anything, but like men, when they do stuff like that, it's usually in fits of anger or rage,
or it's sexually driven.
Yeah, or I feel like with women, it's like planned out and thought of for a while before it actually happens.
It's concise and it's scary because women are seen as nurturing, where men is seen as strong, like physically. They're like brutish almost. I don't want to put them in a box, but they're considered very physical creatures, whereas women are feminine, dainty, nurturing caregivers. And then, I mean, it's bad enough that anybody can kill someone, but for a mother to kill her own child, it just freaks me out, I think, more than like a man raping and killing a woman. Like, that's gruesome, but it's psychologally, it's a little bit scarier to me.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
What was that one movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, and he was in that insane asylum?
Shutter Island.
Shutter Island, yeah.
That movie fucked me up.
I watched that for the first time, and then that was like the whole thing. His wife had drowned their children. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, if you hadn't seen the movie, but like,
it's good though. There's more. It's deeper than that. But
it's much crazier than that. But yeah, it just it freaks me out. But that's I mean, you hear about like postpartum depression when women hurt or kill their children, and not that makes it okay, but that makes a little bit more sense to me. Something like this is just, I don't know. It upsets me a little bit more than I think some other cases do, and that's why I chose to do it, because I heard it and I was like, what the fuck? So that's the story of Diane Downs, one of the most famous female mother killers, I think, ever.
Nice.
Dun, dun, dun. The sources were that 2020 episode. It's on Hulu. I want to say it was season 41. The title of it is My Mother's Sin.
Season 41. I guess that is a very long running show.
It's still doing it. It's still on. And then there's my two favorite podcasts covered it, but I tried not to because I've listened to them before, but I tried not to re-listen to them because I didn't want to. You know how when you watch something enough, you emulate it, and I don't want to like take their mannerisms and
accidentally copy.
Yeah. So I put it all in my own words, mostly from the 2020 episode, but Morbid and That's Why We Drink both covered this. Those are also very good, very comprehensive. So
we'll get those trickle downs.
Yeah. So that's that on that.
Okay, I think that is a great place to end. Thank you for listening. We are Crime in the Coconut, and you can catch us on
at Crime in the Coconut on Instagram and crimeinthecoconut@gmail.com. Maybe send, if you have updates on anything that we talk about, if you're connected to it, if you have your own little true crime, spooky.
Yeah, I'm always down for stories. I actually have a story that I think I might tell, but I'll talk to you about that off of
off air. Yeah. Behind the scenes. But yes, send us stuff, talk to us. Obviously the first couple episodes have been out for a while now, so let's get this started, guys.
All right, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.